cul-de-sacs, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb in Real Estate Show with Stan DeFreitas, the dad, and James DeFreitas, the son. For the next hour, call in with your questions about gardening, growing your favorite veggies, and growing your profits in real estate. Call them anytime at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And a big good morning or evening, depending on when you're listening, where you're at. You may even be with us this afternoon. We do it live. We're everywhere. I guess Apple Podcast and YouTube and Facebook. I think you name it, we're there. And I am amazed that I did get contacted from a lady in New York City who had a problem with her thing. I thought, kind of ironic. I don't always get calls from the city here, but I get a call from somebody in New York City that's having a problem, and she sent me some leaves, she sent me some soil samples, and for a mere $20 per sample,
What a deal.
A deal. Well, I thought, either again, I'm not looking at that as a big profit center. I'm looking at that as trying to help people.
You're trying to be helpful, and that's always a good thing. And speaking of being helpful, too, if you have a gardening question, you can always point your mouse or trackpad, whatever you use, and you can head over to AskMrGreenthumb.com. That's ASKMR Greenthumb.com, and you can click on the Ask button when you get there, and you can submit a photo. If you have a problem with a tree or if you have a problem with a bug ID, we do answer those.
And I may have you actually then send you another number to send me more pictures, because one picture may not be enough. If it's a far away view, I usually like to get one close to the trunk.
Right.
I like to get one close to the foliage. Sometimes it's something different too. It's not always it may be an orchid tree. It could be a holly. It could be, there's so many things it could be. It could be a ligustrum tree.
Sure.
They all can get into problems, and sometimes we have things that can help them. There are times that we need to inject a tree with a fungicide. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we try to identify, just like your doctor tries to say, here's what your problem is, and hopefully they can identify the problem. Mm-hmm. Some doctors in certain situations have better success rates on certain things than others.
Sure.
I might throw that out there as a PSA too. Check out the statistics on stuff. I haven't always done that in life, but probably checking out to make sure what is the outcome of what you're
of the procedure that
you're
looking
having.
At having. Yeah, that makes sense, and I think people should do that. And, if you're going back to the education and knowledge concept, which is always something we're big fans of. I mean, one of the things that, that we have done in the past for certain clients in the tree consulting space is we've had people ask us to, identify what something, is that there, we had a situation where there was a bunch of palm trees that were dying. And of course, when I reached out to the lady who was the doctor at University of Florida, she said, well, I can tell you what it isn't. And I thought was kind of funny because she was telling me, well, in 40 years, I've never had this happen. And of course, we sent her samples, and eventually we got the samples.
It was what we thought, which it wasn't.
Right. And it turned out it was exactly the thing that she said that it probably could never be. Typically, the grand wisdom, especially with palm trees, is that, most people think you can never overwater them. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. It is possible that you could also be planting palm trees on a very high water table. If you're in an area where it was once a lake, or you're in an area where you know that you have a very high water table, where you dig down just very lightly and boom, you're hitting water, that means, your palm tree is more susceptible to having fungal pathogen problems. And one of those fungal pathogen problems that came back on this particular scenario was Phthaliopsis. And now it's funny, they hired us to come out and provide the specific reason as to why these palm trees were in decline, but then when we gave them an estimate on how to correct the problem, it was crickets and never heard back. So
they decided to get the lawn jockey out there with a
saber saw.
And cut them down.
Yeah, I don't know what, we to this day, we don't really know what they did other than, they seem to be happy with replanting a very similar palm tree in the same spot where you had a problem before. What could go wrong? Well, everything, of course. But, again, all we can do is point you in the right direction of what to do. And ultimately, if you make the decision that you know best, then that's on you.
Sure. Well, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Somebody told me the other day, said one of the best pieces of advice that they ever heard from me was to plant a little bit on a pitcher's mound. And the reason is if you plant low, you can always add more water. But if it's too low, then the water settles there. And typically, we get feast or famine. We either get dry time where we'll go a month without any, or we get so much rain that it's like building the ark.
Right.
And that can be a problem. And that's when you'll notice the problem, when that water is setting there a lot. Many times in new landscapes, because of the grass, they have their system coming on every day.
Right.
Because you want to make sure that St. Augustine's pretty much a water-intensive grass.
Right. And so therefore what might be great for the St. Augustine isn't so great for the tree that it's also hitting. So, and in this case, let me just say too, if you have a Canariensis palm tree and the bark feels soft, that's not a good sign for the tree.
The bark should be somewhat hard. A palm never really has, it's kind of like pseudo bark. It's not like a oak tree.
Right.
But it does have an outer covering. And if that gets broken, then you've got inside a palm, we have what we call vascular bundles, and they're a bunch of straws. And if those straws get plugged up, which is what happens when a bacteria gets in there, I'd make the analogy kind of like getting cholesterol that forms clots in your system. Mm-hmm. Once those clots get going and they move to your brain, you get a stroke, or to your heart, you can have a heart attack. And I know those fries are just so good. Mm-hmm. That juicy burger is so great with the extra bun and all the extra stuff on it.
Sure.
But remember, everything has a cost.
So, as our great friend Ramsey would say, just double down on the Crestor is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, Ramsey has a system. He takes a dice, he throws it on the table, and he goes, hey! And he throws his dice down, and he goes, double Crestor a day. I can have those double fries.
So 2 orders of cheesecake and 2 Crestors, he's good to go.
I don't know if there's any science behind it,
right,
but knowing Ram, it works for him. And so we give him a big plug.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily what we call the healthiest, but, he's still kicking, so he's doing something right.
Yeah, he still is. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, he sent me an email recently. He was up there in Helen, Georgia. And if you have not visited Helen, Georgia, it is like a little Bavarian village. It has a bunch of Germanic architecture. It has a lot of, basically they tried to create a little hamlet, if you will, where it is basically just all looks like Germany and like a small German town. And so the pictures that he sent back were interesting. So, yeah, I mean, again, to me, it's still awfully hot outside if you're going to be traveling still in the South. To me, right now, maybe, good time to go to Canada for a few months. But again, everyone has their idea of what a good time is. But interesting concept. Helen, Georgia, you look it up, you can see it's like a town of 500 people, and they clearly have created a little niche with a little mini Germany type of vibe going on in their Bavarian village.
Well, when I was a youngster, our family used to have like a cottage up in the Thousand Islands between New York State and Canada, right down there on Wesley Island. And so that was kind of neat because it would be really cool in the middle of summertime. So we go up there, and then the rest of the, during most of the summer,
you would fry.
You'd be here. You'd
fry.
Be up there, and then you'd come back. But
right. So you'd have less fry.
You can go longer, and a lot of people still do that. They'll have a cottage in, let's say, Georgia in the mountains,
it's making a lot of sense.
Or Carolina, or somewhere else, and then they'll say, "Hey, we live part of the year here. We live part of the year there." I mean, we knew a few people from the spa that would do that. They would have their Carolina place, and then they'd have their Florida place,
sure,
and some Georgia place, or in the mountains, and that's nice. I mean, I think I can understand why people want that. Does seem like we've been hotter this year than in the past.
Well, we know that we've been hotter because we broke records. So that's something that is non-political, is to admit the fact that since we've been keeping records on temperature, we know that it has been the hottest. And, and again, something that's interesting too is a lot of times we will hear this and nobody ever talks about or explains it, but I will. One of the things that's interesting is you'll talk about the idea of the feels like temperature. You heard of this feels like temperature? Well, all that really and also known in the scientific community as the wet bulb temperature. You may have heard of that too.
Add the humidity into the heat.
Yeah, so it's the actual temperature plus the humidity, and then we get a feels like temperature. And we've had record feels like temperatures out there when we factor in the humidity. And don't I know it, since I was playing tennis last week, and even though I was playing in the morning, we still had like a feels like temperature of like 100 degrees by the time I left the court. So
I know I was out in my backyard doing some little chores, and it felt like I thought I saw a guy with a long tail, a pitchfork, and flames coming out of his.
You may have. He goes by John. No, I'm just kidding, John.
I thought, oh my gosh, this is hot. And one thing I would say is I put water everywhere. Take water with you. Drink. Keep hydrated. You'll do much better. We talked about the Pedialyte in one of the other shows.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and they actually have some Pedialyte now that's marketed just for seniors too. So I imagine they've tweaked it somehow. Maybe they've reduced some of the sugar or something like that. But one of the things that it's not just for babies. As a matter of fact, they're marketing it to as an alternative to Gatorade.
They should be one of our sponsors.
They really should be, since I push it. But I just again, I'm just throwing out
Public
things
service
that I think are helpful. That I've incorporated in my life. And then what's the point of doing a radio show if you can't, or podcast or whatever we're calling this, if you can't share some of the, knowledge that you've accumulated. And again, dehydration is a very big concern during the summer months, and especially down here where it's so hot. I mean, one of the things that we don't get, if you're out in New Mexico, you're going to get, a lot less humidity, and therefore you are going to have benefits of evaporative cooling. Well, evaporative cooling doesn't mean a whole lot here in Florida. So with that noise, we're going to go pay some bills, so don't change the dial. Stay with us right here, and I'll let you go ahead and take it away, Sam.
If you've got a plant question, you've got a real estate question, we're your source. And that is every Sunday morning, 8 to 9, and Saturday evening, 8 to 9 p.m. So you stay with us as the plant talk and real estate talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786, on the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside, in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at AskMrGreenthumb.com. Got questions about gardening, real estate, or both? Give him a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And if you've got a problem, give us a call, or you can send us a picture. And how can they send us a picture?
They can certainly go to the website. I always recommend go to the website at askmrgreenthumb.com. That's ASKMR greenthumb.com. You can click on the Ask button in the upper left corner. You can do that right from your phone. So if you've taken a photo, you could submit a photo that way. If you don't want to mess around with that, you could always just sidestep that, of course, and you could just send you a text message directly at 727. And your number is?
You're going to give it to them.
Oh, you're going to put it back on me. 423-4794. So that's 727-423-4794. And of course, if you have any real estate related questions,
The number is?
you could certainly give me a call or text at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And of course, again, it doesn't have to. If you don't want to call me, that's not your thing. That's perfectly okay. I'm very nimble. I can adapt to your level of comfort in terms of communication. So you can just send me a text, and that is perfectly acceptable in my world. One of the things that I will say, though, that if you are acting as, if you're a buyer and you want me to work with you, one of the things I will require, at least for my own personal brokerage, is I do require a buyer-broker agreement. And basically what that says is, hey, if I'm going to spend a bunch of time working to try to find you the property that you want, I want you to make sure that you're loyal to me when it comes time to making sure that I get compensated for the time that I spend looking for properties for you. And a lot of times people will get a little miffed over that, or they'll feel like that is something that's totally out of line or out of character. But I think it should become more of of something that's acceptable in terms of the real estate space. And the reason that I think it should be is that there are just so many people out there that are willing to work for nothing, and I'm just not. And so, the time, effort, and energy that we have is finite, and making sure that we make every transaction count is something that I think we all should do if we're licensed agents and trying to earn money in Florida, which is a very, very competitive market. And speaking of things in Florida, as we're going through the hot season here, what are some of the things that people might be, that they should be looking at to garden as we start to come out of the heat?
Well, you might start your little seedlings if you're going to have annuals. We'll say marigolds or petunias or impatiens. Now, you could start things from cuttings too.
We're probably thinking, October when with this?
Probably. Some people, if you're starting seedlings, you may even start in September if you're going to start it from seed.
So next month.
So next month coming up, which is a couple weeks. And, it takes a while for a seedling to get to a point where it would be like something you'd buy at the either nursery or big box store, be a 4-pack, 6-pack, which you can buy. Let's say you only need, how many eggplant do you need? Probably 4, 6. I mean, that would be plenty. If they all come through,
right,
you're going to have more eggplant. You'll be giving them away.
Right.
Which, by the way, my avocados, many people think are eggplants when they see them because they look like an eggplant.
Yeah, you grow the Brogdon.
I grow Brogdon, a big one. I actually just gave one to Steve today. He said, he puts him in good. His wife is happy.
Oh, good.
She usually has a frying pan at the door, and if he brings her an avocado, he doesn't get whacked.
Well, that's a good thing.
So that's a good thing. So you take that Steve Baltimore, tip. You can come by and buy avocados from me, so you don't get whipped. I'm just kidding. We are there. I do enjoy giving them away. I give away a lot of the carambolas too, which you like.
I do. Yeah. Better known as the starfruit.
Starfruit is a common name for it. The carambola. I grow bananas. I would probably have every inch of my yard edible if it were.
You practically do.
Well, and I do like that. I enjoy that. It gives me an extra pleasure to think I don't have to go and, give $500 to Publix so I can carry my 2 bags home.
Right. Well, you do that too.
I know, braggart, that I can carry both big bags home for only $500. Means you're a smart shopper.
Yeah.
But you can grow some of your own stuff, and I like that. I do grow some broccoli. Points a lot, like broccoli, cauliflowers. All of those veggies are really good for you, too. They all have a little bit of sulfur in them. And, sulfur is important to you, to your health. And if you eat the broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and you put down that bag of chips that has a lot of salt and a lot of oil on it, you're going to be healthier.
Sure.
And people go, well, it's only a bag. I know. and
Every
it's-
day.
And it's only the super big bag.
Right.
What could go wrong? Well, I thought I was probably the most athletic oldster I knew. I mean, I captained softball teams, took them from worst to first. I, played tennis, captained USTA tennis team for 30 years. I did a lot of things right. Didn't smoke, didn't drink much, and still had a heart problem. So, I thought, this is ironic. Mick Jagger's out there who's 81 and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and he's still kicking. I did everything right, and I almost died. So,
Well, and genetics play a big role in that too. And but the other thing I would say is, you got to try to make the best of what you have, and no one really knows what their genes are unless they, you can look to your parents and try to make some educated guesses as to what you think your health might be based on, But again, it's back to that. What did they do in their life? Did they have a hard, working life? Did they do backbreaking work? I mean, there's always these other intangibles that have to be.
And some of that
factored in.
backbreaking work's good for you.
Some of it is, yeah,
it's probably better to do that than be the couch potato that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I think the big issue that I see is people tend to be one way or the other. They tend to either be sedentary and obese, or they tend to be, I'm a marathon runner, or they go extreme in either direction. And again, that's unbalanced on both sides. And I was talking about this with my cardiologist the other day, and he was telling me that, look, you really don't want. I mean, the human body wasn't meant to run 15 miles a day. It just wasn't meant to do that.
I did it at one time in my life.
Right, but I think that his overall point is that's not good either, because of the impact on your joints, and you're causing your heart to. You're stressing it. I mean, you are making it stronger in that process, but you're also, you're asking it to do something that it wasn't really designed to do. And so, again, back to the idea of moderation in all things is probably.
Greeks had a great motto.
They did. And so, again, I would probably advocate for somebody doing a 30-minute workout 3 times a week, and don't be a couch potato, and try to eat healthy, and try to find the middle way, as they say, even in the Buddhist philosophy. Try to find the middle way. The extreme on either side is not great. You could make that argument for politics too. Being extreme on either the left or the right is not a really great way to go through life, because those people are usually very unhappy. So with that note, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Stay tuned with us, of course. We'll be talking more about not only politics, but trees and shrubs and things that go bump in your garden and maybe in your real estate. Stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online, aflre.com. At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today. Did you know that Stan DeFreitas, Mr. Greenthumb, can come to your house and examine your plants, trees, and palms? His knowledge can help you become the envy of your neighborhood with lush, green, healthy trees that don't just live, but thrive. Palms and oak trees are part of what makes Florida a beautiful place to live. But they get diseases and are often cut down. We offer ways to save your trees. Call or text Stan today at 727-423-4794 or go online to askmrgreenthumb.com. That's ASKMRgreenthumb.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Green Thumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I almost had my yellow helmet on today because I was here a couple of weeks ago and a great big branch had fallen out out here by the street near the studios, and I had predicted that was going to happen, and it did.
I remember that was a branch out there.
If you see me in bubble wrap and a yellow helmet on as I walk around the station outside, you'll know why.
That's a good idea. And actually, that's a perfect segue. Why don't you, let me ask you this question. Why don't you tell people what a tree risk assessment is?
Well, you're going to go in and do a risk assessment of the tree as to what is the potential for failure. And every tree, I mean, we can say kind of like us, every tree is going to have a day where it dies. Every tree will have a day where it's really vigorous and growing, kind of like when we're young. And then you're going to have your middle stage, and then you're going to have your older age. And many times you want to keep those older trees. Now, trees can live in some cases for centuries.
Right.
Live oaks in particular. So you want to keep that tree alive. Laurel oaks and water oaks, probably not as much. They probably live more what I call the lifespan of a man, which is typically anywhere from 60 to 80 to 90 years.
Still a long time.
Still a long time. In our lifetime, you know, there again, as you said, we sometimes plant a tree for the next generation. It's not always just for us.
Right.
So other people planted trees for us that we see now and enjoy. But why shouldn't you try to keep those trees alive and healthy? And it's mostly ignorance. I mean, I don't want to pick on people. Most of the problems we haven't learned what to look for.
Right.
You're not an arborist, and I understand that. That's the reason you send us pictures, and I can look at your tree. And I'm not pushy. I told the lady today, I looked at her palm pictures. I said, I'm not pushing you into anything.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you what I think I can do for you, but it's all up to you.
Right.
I mean, I have a friend up in north up here that sent me some pictures the other day. I don't think he's going to do anything because he still has moths coming out of his coat pocket because I know he's tight. But what will happen is you don't have to pay me. You can pay the tree guys $7,000 or $8,000, which is probably a good investment to have those trees removed.
Well, yeah, and I think the main essence, keeping this on a positive front, is that what we're trying to say is, look, there are alternatives to just removal. I mean, when a tree has already failed or is in the process of failing, then to me it's kind of like a divorce. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and then there's this big hole that's missing. Now, I guess when people are happy about the divorce, it could be a good positive thing too, because then the one thing that was annoying them is no longer there. But I tend to think that in general, most people are in favor of saving trees. And that's one of the things that we focus on, is trying to, through education, focus on saving trees and making sure that we provide an adequate assessment of where your tree is. Now, a lot of times we go out to trees and it doesn't have a beetle infection. But what we do notice is just that it has a nutrient deficiency. And so one of the things that we can do there is we can also provide tree injections into your live oak or water oak or laurel oak, which are worth saving, even if they don't live quite as long as the live oak does. They may not be as valuable in terms of an appraisal standpoint, but they are valuable if they are providing shade over your house. Now, one of the things that we like to do is we like to not only have trees survive, but we want them to thrive. So I always say it together, survive and thrive. And so one of the ways that we can do that is providing injections, and we will provide a nutrient pack around your tree. And that tree will look very much different from when we do it the first time to the second time. And then 12 months after the second time, you'll see a tree that looks radically different, a tree that looks like it's went from having a starvation diet to a tree that looks like it's actually being fed and looks healthy. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed even here at the radio studios here is that a lot of the trees here look anemic. They don't look like they're being fed, and they look like they're on a
because they haven't.
Right, and right, and that's it's something that I think, once again, keeping it positive and making sure that you educate folks, and explaining what we think should be done, and then you have to just put it out there and let people make the decisions that they're going to make.
Well, many people don't know though, and the problem is in commercial settings like this, often it's like, we have our four walls, we have this, we know there's stuff here, but we don't really think about what do we do to keep it. I mean, it's not just endemic of here. It's
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, even in the public shopping area that I'm at, there are several trees that I looked at, and I'm like, huh. That tree there looks like a shotgun was taken to it, and because it has a bunch of little holes in it. Now I know that from training that's not, nobody's taking a shotgun to it, but it's actually, those are just wood-boring beetles that are eating into that tree. Now, in my mind, it would make a lot of sense in a commercial setting for them to pick out a bunch of trees that are around those trees and inject those trees so that you can keep and save them, so that you're not spending tens of thousands of dollars to remove a tree. You can spend you can spend $11, $12, $13,000 removing one tree.
Sure.
So people need to remember that it's very, very expensive. And the other thing that you don't want to do, you do not want to rely on your insurance company. Now, I'm not saying insurance companies won't pay out claims, but you don't want to rely on your insurance company because of inappropriate maintenance. Because part of your job is to try to mitigate any potential problems so that you took steps. You're responsible. Any policy that's ever written in the state of Florida, you're responsible to try to mitigate any of the damages you have by taking appropriate steps on maintenance. And that includes your trees, whether it's palm trees we looked at a palm tree the other day, and a very nice lady, an elderly lady, and she has the seed pods that are sticking up and they haven't broke open yet. But you can imagine, the seed pod alone is probably 40 pounds. It looks like a little javelin. If that javelin were to come off and fall and hit the ground, they stick straight into the ground when they fall off.
It could do major harm.
Yeah, people have been impaled by them. I forget what palm tree that is. It's a big, tall one.
I think she has a royal, maybe. I'm not sure.
It's one that has the missile-shaped seed pods, rather.
Or queen palm, maybe.
I don't think it's a queen palm. It's one of those that are a little more stately than a queen palm, and it's much bigger base. It's one of those scenarios where it's definitely, a palm tree that, has significant value. And
Might be the Canary Island, maybe one of the date palms.
It could be. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it is. I'd have to go back and look at it. But again, it's all about being proactive and taking a look at a potential problem and being vigilant.
Well, I see so many palms and so many trees. I sometimes, when I get there, I know what it is, but
Right.
but trying to remember what every person's palm is,
Yeah,
I sometimes,
that's tough.
is it, one of the Phoenix group, or is it, and there's a number of those.
Right. And that's very tough to remember because we do see a lot of different trees and plants and stuff in people's landscapes, and it's really hard to keep straight. But one of the things that we do is we do take pictures so that we can see what something looks like, and then we can go back and we can do a compare and contrast to make a determination. And often what we'll see, especially when we do live oaks, is we'll see a tree that looked really anemic one year. We'll come back 12 months later and you'll see a totally different looking tree because the tree is being fed. It's getting the proper nutrition that it hasn't ever received. And then all of a sudden you're going to have a tree that has a much better chance of living its full life cycle, which is what we want. And it's what we encourage people to also want, because, now you're being proactive. You're doing things to help mitigate a problem. Being reactive almost never pays. If you have tree failure, part of the reason tree risk assessments are being required in new build construction in a lot of the municipalities is because they want to make sure that if there is a problem area, that you're going to be building an area that we're not building next to something where a tree is in a high risk scenario. We're trying to make sure that we factor that in, and that's just being, that's a really good best practices kind of
Sure.
mindset, and that's a terminology that's being used a whole lot more. Best practices almost everywhere you go, but I think it fits here, and that's one of the reasons why it's so vital. Now, if you don't want to pay attention to it, that's okay, but the learning curve is steep and it is harsh. The learning curve is, you strike a check after something has happened to pay your insurance deductible, or you're going to pay directly to the tree company that's going to come out to remove the multi-$1,000 tree that has failed. So, it's really up to you as to, do you want to know and do you want to do anything about it? So, a lot of times people, they kind of want to know, but then it would also force them into having to do something about it. So I always question people when they want to. Remember, a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. And, you shouldn't want to know if you don't want to know the next thing that data tells you.
It's kind of like changing your oil. You don't have to change it. You can replace the motor.
Right.
It's just going to be a whole lot more expensive than getting that oil changed.
Right. And again, I mean, with record temperatures that we're having here in Florida, one of the things that we always encourage is that you want to increase the shade in as much as you can, because you are automatically lowering the temperature. Now, you have this interesting duality taking place. You have people that are wanting to have solar put in on their property. And I'm not against the concept of having solar, but you're having people cut down perfectly good trees in order to have solar power so that they can be good stewards to the environment.
It kind of seems kind of a mix.
Yeah, it's a mixed message.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, is that, do we want people doing that? Well, I understand individually how that could be really good for the homeowner in terms of their pocketbook, but on the grander scheme, we want to have collectively, we want to have more trees, because we know that that's better for an environment. And in any country that doesn't respect its trees, well, you can go read a book by Jared Diamond, and you can talk about, he wrote a book, how societies, survive or fail, or something to that effect. And basically every country out there where they didn't respect their trees, their society did poorly.
And even one half of the island that did and one half the island that didn't,
Right.
radically different.
Yeah, and he uses this as an example. And in that book, to show you have a good memory, he's talking about Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
I remember.
And if you fly over those two places, you'll find that Haiti has no trees. You fly over the Dominican Republic, and there's lots of trees. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Dominican Republic is vastly a better country or governed better, but I will say they did respect their trees in a way that Haiti didn't. And the country does a little better in that regard. It has a lot more tourism.
So Haiti plants more trees.
Right. Plant more trees. And you always see in their, on the news, you'll always see, flooding, and you'll see, a mountainous area where they're having sloughing and those kinds of things occurring. And that's partly because there's not a root structure to hold that soil in place.
Sure.
So keep that in mind. And it's one of the reasons that you'll see municipalities, cities and stuff put out, ornamental peanut. They'll put out sod or something that looks like sod of some degree, and it's to try to hold that soil in place. And with that interesting information, I'll let you take it away.
And we want to tell folks, I think this is the fourth, right?
That's the third.
The third still? All right. That we'll be back, and we want you to send us any pictures of your trees or shrubs that are not doing well, and we'll try to answer you back. Stay with us.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com. At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at AskMrGreenthumb.com. Got questions about gardening, real estate, or both? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And you may think about using us for your real estate as well as your trees. We do have you have a company called Dream at Real Estate.
Yeah.
If somebody's out there and they're a go-getter and they're tired of being with some big corporate person, can they call you?
Of course they can. Yeah, I mean, one of the big things they can do is that, if you're with a big corporation, I mean, one of the things, let me just back up too, and for those that don't know, most of the agents that are working for a big corporation, they're usually paying a monthly fee to belong to said corporation. And, so they're not only are they paying a fee to have MLS access, which they are, they're paying that, but they're also paying a fee to the brokerage to be part of their exclusive club. And then on top of that, some of these people will also pay rent on an office somewhere, a desk fee or an office fee. And they will literally lease space directly from the brokerage, and that way that they're helping to pay for the overall cost of the brokerage having that space. So again, there's a lot of overhead in certain aspects of how that works. And so, my thoughts is that most of the stuff today is going in a different direction. A lot of people are working from home. And because they're working from home, it's a much more comfortable scenario. And, and a lot of real estate is done that way. I mean, people can talk to people via Zoom. They don't exactly have to go out and have coffee. Now, I still like to go and meet people because I still believe that real estate is a largely belly-to-belly business. I still like to talk to people in the flesh. I feel like I can make a better connection. And plus, I like to buy people coffee and find out their life story. Selling real estate, no matter what business you're in, it doesn't have to be real estate even. No matter what business you're in, having a personal connection with people is the single most important thing that you can have, and if you can do a deal or help somebody that you like and they like you, that's even better. One of the things that I think is missed sometimes in this digital world that we have found ourselves in is that there's this tendency nowadays to skip that first initial approach of learning who you're doing business with. And I think that is a mistake. And I think that's a part of the old school mentality that could make its way back. And I think that the younger generation that have the skills to still go and meet people are going to do better than people that are entirely reliant on digital communication with people, relying just on emails or texts or that sort of thing. And I think that has its place. And I'm not trying to discount that, but I think that it should work in concert with actually meeting people directly and finding out, the name of their dog and finding out the needs that they're going to have with the property that they might, wish to purchase. So that's kind of my little real estate PSA, tip of the day, if you will. The other thing I was going to mention too is that, the July statistics are out, and we're always a month or so behind on getting these statistics out because that's the nature of these things. We always have to wait for those statistics to come in after they're processed. But they're pretty good at making sure that they provide those real estate statistics to us. So some interesting stats for the July 2023 is the active days on market. Well, the active days on market for this past calendar month was 43 days. Well, that's okay. So we know it's 43 days. Well, what was it a year ago? That's even more interesting to see a long-term trend.
It was less.
Well, yeah, a year ago in July of 2022, it was 16 days on market. So it's more than doubled. Okay, almost tripled in the amount of time that it's taking for the property to sit on the market. We'll look at now. What's interesting now? This is a very interesting real estate stat. Now, what's interesting is the pricing. The pricing seems to be still very high. Now, get this: in June of 2023, we sold $8 billion worth of real estate, Florida real estate, and in July of 2022, so a year. Roughly a year apart, we sold 6.9 billion. So even though it's taking longer to sell,
we're selling more.
We still have a higher total sales volume that is out there. So that's very interesting. We have and here kind of proves the point by the next stat. The next stat says, well, the sales price. What was the average sales price? Well, the average sales price was $451,000 in July of 2023. Well, what was it back in July of 22? Well, it was 448,000. So just up ever so slightly. Okay, so you know, it's interesting in that regard because you know, we like to know these things. We like to know what the trends are. So even though we obviously have more on the market to sell, which is good for inventory, it's still very expensive what is available to be sold. The obviously, the months of inventory have also increased. So we're now at 3 months of inventory. So what does months of inventory mean? Well, this is another real estate only kind of term, but because you tune into our show, you get to learn some of the real estate jargon that we use independently. And I don't care what field you're in, marketing or horticulture, whatever, there's always jargon that's specific to that industry that you're in. Well, months of inventory means it would take 3 months for all of the properties to be sold. So in other words, they're all gone in 3 months. Okay, so that is the months of inventory. Now, there are some outliers on there. There are some people out there that have ridiculous prices on property, or my personal favorite, and I always like to mention this, are the people that are going to sell the property for what it could be, not for what it is, but for what it could be. Sometimes you see this done a lot in commercial properties, or people that are unsure of how to sell something. What they'll do is they'll try to sell it, of what it might be. Or,
it could be the Taj Mahal.
Or another mistake that I'll see is they'll mention an idea of what could be done on a property, and sometimes they'll even say it in residential. They'll say, "Oh, well, it potentially has a spare lot," except they'll leave the potentially part off of there, and they'll sell it as if there was already a subdivided lot on a parcel, even though there isn't. So we call that deceptive marketing, and I don't advocate for that, and I often tell agents don't do it. I know that might sound good on the bottom line, but it's not good for the brokerage who ultimately is responsible for your shady marketing tactics. So don't do it. If it is one singular lot, it's one singular lot. Could the new owner potentially divide it and potentially build another property on something? Well, sure, they potentially could do that. They potentially could win the lottery. They could potentially, grow 6 inches and have a new growth spurt from 50 to 60. Not likely, but it could happen. But you're going to find, too, that a lot of times in residential markets that people don't want extra density occurring in their area because that doesn't necessarily have a direct correlation to increased values.
And we would tell you the broker is responsible for your actions. And if whoever's the name on the door,
right,
you can't say, "Oh, well, I'm an independent contractor." If their name's on the door and if your name happens to be on the door, you're still part of the door.
Correct.
And I think it's funny. People will go, "Well, he's kind of an agent on his own." No, he's not. He's working underneath a broker.
Or she.
Or
yeah.
she.
Yeah.
Or she or he. Or whoever is working underneath. They're working underneath that broker.
Correct.
And underneath that door. And that's when they see that door, whatever the big name is.
And especially in real estate, too, because there are real estate laws that create this hierarchy,
right,
where you have this arrangement. But yeah, I think even when it's not spelled out very clearly to the general public, it's very confusing. And if you can't tell, that there's a problem. I mean, if the general, again, all of the laws in the state of Florida, again, I'm not a lawyer, but all of the laws are set up to protect the consumer.
Sure.
In other words, if a consumer can't know that there's a difference, then you should have a sign up in your business letting people know, hey, you're doing business with such and such person, and that person is separate and distinct from this business as a whole. And if you don't have that disclaimer up, then that's confusing. One of the reasons real estate companies always try to make sure that they put their marketing out, that this is a singular office and doing business only in this particular office. Well, they're trying to make sure that you can't go and sue the entire company if they have 27 offices.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons that they put that on there, is they're trying to make a disclaimer, something that their lawyers could argue against if you should try to make a broader claim against their entire business.
Fat chance.
Well, if you don't put that up, then you betcha the lawyers are going to do it, because you've created that potentiality for them to assume that there is this much larger, grander relationship. And the public is always going to do that. They're always going to assume that this person is part of a much larger organization. And you are.
Yeah. So you can hide that if you wish, but it's not going to hold up.
Exactly. And I think most people would understand that. One of the things we always encourage people to do is we don't take our audience for granted. We certainly feel blessed to have you spend a little bit of time with us every week, every Sunday or every Saturday night, listening to our show. And of course, the eclectic, the great Dr. Bill Handelman is coming up next. And with that, I'll let you take it away.
And the best time to plant a plant is when you've got that shovel in your hand. Make sure you enjoy your life and garden. And remember, without plants, without trees, we wouldn't be here.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.